Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Astro Knights from Indie Boards and Cards. And Astro Knights is the, not successor, spiritual successor, re-implementation. It's the new version of Aeon's End, although with a lot of differences. Think Terraforming Mars to Ares Expedition, and we have Aeon's End to Astro Knights. And this, by the way, everything you see here is prototype, rules, components, all that subject to change, specifically because you'll see some tokens over here that are nothing on the other side. You'll see hand-cut player boards. This is not what your final copies will look like. And this is over on Kickstarter. There'll be a link in the description down below. But Astro Knights is a game in which you're basically trying to take out the big bad. That's the core concept of the game. You have a variable number of characters, however many are playing, and this does accommodate true solo, so you can play it as a solo game with, like, single dedicated character, or you can play it up to 4 with a whole bunch of characters as you go ahead and dive in to take out the big bad. The core concept is it's a deck building game. You're building out your deck as you try to figure out what's the right combination of cards that you can get that will help you combine with your own player powers and abilities of what makes them different and special in order to take down, in this case, Architect 0815, although there's a whole bunch of different bosses you can be fighting against with variable difficulty levels as well. The general turn structure is you're going to go ahead and flip over one of these turn order cards. You're going to see who's going. In this case, player 1's going to go. They're going to grab their hand of cards, and they're going to sit there and think through how they want to, well, take their actions. This is the wrong deck over here. We need to switch that around. There we go. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and play our cards, and we'll choose. Let's go ahead and spend 3 energy. We have 3 energy. We can go ahead and prep 2 weapons. Let's talk about that in a second. But let's spend our 3 energy, and we'll grab... Let's go ahead and grab a darks. You know what? Let's go ahead and bump up a weapon slot. We're going to go ahead and bump up a weapon slot because he likes having weapons, and we're going to need that later. So we're going to spend that 3 energy. That's going to go into your play area. We're going to prep 2 weapons. And there's not a lot of table space going on over here because, well, just trying to get it all on the camera. But we're going to go ahead and prep 2 weapons. We'll put them over here for right now. And he can prep 2 weapons because he has currently 3 weapon slots. You can only prep as many weapons as you have weapon slots. So we're going to get that ready. We spent our energy on that, and we're done. Next player's turn. Let's go ahead and reveal the next player's turn, and that is player 2. So player 2 over here is going to go ahead and grab her hand of cards, and she's going to go ahead and spend, and then he'll go ahead and draw up his cards at the end. She'll go ahead and spend her hand of cards, and she has 1, 2, 3, 4 energy, and she can attack with somebody else's weapon. So she'll go ahead and attack with this weapon over here, dealing 1 damage, pushing into the discard pile, and deal 1 damage to the Architect, because that's all we have right now. We don't have any minions currently in play. Let's move these off to the side. From there, she's also going to prep a weapon, by the way. And with her 4 energy, she can spend something. She'll go ahead and grab a lightning. You know what? She'll grab a mag field, start building up her energy generation even more. That will go into her discard pile. And at the end of her turn, the cards in play go on top of that. The reason that's relevant is because part of what goes on in Astro Knights, part of what makes it different than a lot of other deck builders, except for, well, Aeon's End, is the fact that you never shuffle your deck. You are building your deck out as you play, but you never actually shuffle it. When you're done with your hand of cards, you go through your next turn, you buy your next card. Let's grab that one, put it into our discard pile. We're going to go ahead and put our hand of cards directly and just keep drawing. You never shuffle your deck, which gives you the opportunity to build your deck as you go, to build your deck in the order and customization that you want, as you figure out what you're buying, what you're discarding, what weapons you're using, all of that. Past that, we have the boss's turn. The boss's turn is going to go ahead and go. Let's go ahead and just skip until we get to the boss's turn over here. Wow, the boss is going late over here. Boss turn. So, when the boss takes a turn, you're going to activate any abilities in play. At the beginning of the game, there aren't going to be any. Then you're going to go ahead and draw one of its cards and do whatever it needs to do. Those are often going to be either powerful effects, like this one. Discard a droid in play. Place 2 droids in play. If the boss is level 2, destroy this card. So we're going to go ahead and place 2 droids in play, which this boss over here, Architect 815, likes to build little droid armies to take us down. But then, alternatively, it'll be some sort of powerful effect like this, or sometimes it's going to be something like an actual minion in play. Again, Architect 815 likes to work with his own droid deck. Each boss has their own different spin as far as how they take you on, but they're all going to be putting bad things in play that you have to deal with. Which means the next time the boss activates, you have to deal with whatever those cards are, whatever they're doing. Which has this escalating aspect of you need to keep everything in check, because at first, your damage is going to be heading towards the boss. Take a few hit points, not a problem, knock it down to 46, 45, but then eventually, you're going to start having things in play that are dealing more damage to you, which means now you have a choice to make. In fact, every single turn of the game, you have a choice to make. Are you charging forward to take the boss down from wherever he is down to the end? Or are you dealing with the threats in play, the various minions, the creatures that are going to be dealing damage to you, because you've got to take them out so they stop hurting you, but if you spend too much time dealing with the creatures, the boss might overwhelm you and actually take you down. You see the players over here, well, they're going to slowly exhaust, potentially losing their health, and the homeworld is the big threat you want to worry about. See, the boss is going to constantly be attacking the homeworld, dealing damage and slowly reducing the homeworld's health down from wherever its starting point down to 0. And when players are exhausted, damage dealt to those exhausted players is going to go to the homeworld and be doubled. So while you can have a player die or be exhausted, you want to be very mindful of how and when you do that, because if you do it wrong, you will have a ton more damage heading straight to the homeworld. You're going to rinse and repeat this turn order. You're going to go ahead and go through the last card, shuffle these up, and do what you need to do over there, and then keep playing until someone wins, either the boss or you. Again, for the most part, a simple engine. You're building out your deck, you're controlling your discard pile order, you're going by the turn order cards to go ahead and take damage, to deal damage to the bosses and or protect the homeworld and do all of that stuff. The general turn cycle of your weapons is you prep your weapons a turn in advance. You have your weapon slots, which you can build out more weapon slots to hold up to 4 weapons. You have your health track, which you want to be mindful of, and then you have your power track, which you can pay energy every single round to slowly level that up, and then once you get to the top, you can just cash it in for whatever one-time bonus your character gives you. And that, in a core, is Astro Knights. Mix in, a whole bunch more characters than what you're seeing here, a whole bunch more bosses, and a whole bunch more cards, and that's what you have as far as the game. Which brings us to the review part of things, starting off with ease of play. Rules are super easy, especially if you're coming in from Aeon's End, which does make me a little biased, I guess, because I know the rules for Aeon's End, but the rules here are very, very, very easy to dive into. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward as far as what it's doing. It has a decent amount of actual detail going through it, so you will have to go through, the 15, 20 pages or whatever it is of rules. Might be less than that, I don't know. But all of it's very easily understandable, quick to go into, and super easy to teach as well. The very nature of the fact that it's a cooperative experience means I can give you the core rules you need and then jump into it and give you those little edge cases. Oh, hey, look, the boss's deck is empty. Now the boss is leveling up, because that's one thing we didn't talk about, which is the bosses will slowly level up. You have level 1 over here, and every time they shuffle their deck, the bosses get worse, and then the bosses get worse, and then they get worse. And that cycle is going to continue every single time they cycle the deck, getting progressively harder. Additionally, in addition to the variable difficulty of the actual bosses, you'll also have variable difficulty little extreme cards that can modify any individual boss. So yeah, easy to play for the most part. As far as table space, fairly decent. This is very condensed right now just to be on camera and all that, but it does take up a little table space, not a ton. As far as playtime does vary depending on player count. I've knocked out solo games of this in 25 minutes, and I've had 3-player games take an hour, so it will vary as far as how long the game is. I would say when you're in general, when you're playing with people who know the game, it won't really feel too long. It'll feel appropriate for the game experience that you're having. As far as player count, speaking of player count and all that, it's a 1 to 4 player game. I play this at 1, 2, and 3 players. I have not dived in at 4, and I would say, based on my experience so far, I would be hesitant to do so. Willing, but hesitant. For me, 1 is the fastest play. Quick, to the punch, gives you the experience you need, but does so at the cost of any sense of working together. 2 already adds another player, and now you're starting to work together, feeding off one another. Hey, you go ahead and deal with that, I'll protect the homeworld, I'll heal you, you start dealing damage. And even 3 adds another player and more teamwork potential, but it does so at the cost of a little bit of downtime. And so I would say 4 I'm willing to play, but given the fact that even at 2 and 3 I'm not sure which one I prefer, I would say 4 is already starting to slide out of where I would prefer to play this game at. But 1, 2, and 3 all were very solid, and 4 haven't played yet. As far as interaction is very, very high. In general, you're trying to work together, you're trying to figure out what you need to do, you're talking to each other, you're having discussions. What if I do this, and what if you do that, and do you want to buy that card? What if I buy this card, or do you want that card? Is that better for your engine? So you are talking together and working together as you play. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, first of all, like I said already, this game is good at variable player counts. It's easy to jump in as a solo experience, gives you a quick, fast-paced little punching people in the face, punching, well, preferably him and the various minions, the boss and the minions and all that. There's lots of variability in terms of the heroes, in terms of the villains, in terms of the locations, the difficulty you have. And again, I'm dealing with a prototype here, so I don't know what the final contents you have for the game are. I don't know what everything will be. But as far as even just the prototype comes with a bunch of homeworlds that all give you different abilities to play with, different starting house, a whole bunch of bosses, each boss coming with different difficulties, meaning bosses on the back have a printed difficulty level of what scale they are. This one's a challenge rating of 5. I've seen so far, I think, 2, 5, and 8. I'm pretty sure there's another one over there, but it's a bunch of challenge ratings as far as the boss, and then ways to modify each individual boss. So if I like playing against Architect 815, and I do, because of the unique challenges each boss throws at you, but I want it to be a little more ramped up in difficulty, and I do, then I can go ahead and put the expert level difficulty on Architect 815, which is good, because the 8 level boss on expert difficulty, I don't want to do that. But then yeah, so you have the variability from the bosses, from the homeworlds. And then from the heroes as well. The core prototype I have over here has 6 heroes. I don't know what the final game will or won't. And then the one thing I would say, and then the card markets over here, they're rotating card markets. They're not fixed card markets. That's a big difference from Aeon's End. If you're looking at this from an Aeon's End perspective, these are rotating card markets. You draw a card, and the next card is going to be different underneath it. So you have them structured in terms of the types and then the costs within that type in order to ensure the players always have something that will fit their strategy. But it's not going to be static card markets. They're rotating and variable card markets. And then next up from there, we have lots of team play. The aspect of working together in this game, because like I said already, while I enjoyed the solo mode, it gives you a 25-minute, 30-minute game, but it comes at the cost of working together, of feeling like I can talk to you and have a discussion about what we want to do and how we want to help each other. And so at higher player counts, at 2 and 3 player counts, you definitely have that feeling of teamsmanship, teamsmanship seems like the wrong word. Working together, being on the same team, doing what you need to do over there. And then the player powers combined with the card markets give you lots of ways to play to your strengths, play to your strategies. If you have an ability that helps save the homeworld, that adds more health to the homeworld, maybe you want to focus on building up your energy market so you can keep cycling that in and keep the homeworld powered up as long as possible. If you're playing as a weapon character, you want to go ahead and grab those extra weapons because you're going to be utilizing them as often and as fast as possible to take down the boss. So lots of different ways to play to your strategies and lots of ways to build around your characters. And ultimately, the whole entire game really comes down to powers and abilities. It's deck building, it's grabbing your cards, it's doing what you want to do, and just having fun, figuring out the pattern or the deck that works for your character, and then using it until you win or lose along the way. As far as things I don't like, the biggest thing for me is actually that variable card market. In general, in deck building games, I have always been a bigger fan of fixed card markets compared to variable card markets. I like the strategy of trying to think through not just what I currently see on the table, but seeing the whole pattern of, okay, great, here are the cards, I'm going to start with a few of those, and then as I level up my deck, I'll start moving towards those cards. I generally vastly prefer the strategy and the agency that comes with a fixed card market as opposed to a variable card market. Which brings me to my second thing I don't like, which is that aspect, which is the decision trees in this game are limited. Not no decisions, to be very clear, but because of the variable card market, I find that is often the biggest tactical area of choice that I have in a deck building experience. The idea of trying to build around what I see and planning for the future. Because the cards are currently just whatever 6 cards are currently available and I have no clue what's coming next, it means that most of my decisions are being made in the moment. What is good in the moment? Not what is good for the whole game, but what's good in the moment. And that reduces my decision trees down significantly as far as how much agency, how much choice I have as I go through this game. As far as what I can see others not liking, lots of random stuff to go around. If you don't like random in your games, there's a lot of randomness. Now, even though it does take out a lot of the randomness around typical deck builders because you're not shuffling your cards, you're still shuffling the boss deck. You're still shuffling the turn order deck. The cards that come out in this market, those are going to be random at any given point. The boss cards that hit you at any given point and what they do, there's a lot of stuff that will happen that may or may not be things you could have prepped for and planned for and just hit you in ways you don't like. If you're not comfortable with just a little bit of zaniness and craziness and just things happening, this is not a game for you. And then be mindful of lower difficulty levels I find didn't present the challenge I wanted. For me, I had to go to level 5 and upwards before I felt that this game was actually giving me a back and forth where I felt like I could lose. Lower difficulty levels I think are great for easing people into the game, and then maybe combined with some of the expert cards on those lower bosses. But I would say if you don't like games that could be too easy, you may want to jump straight into Astro Knights at level 5 or above in one of these bosses, just to ensure that you get hit a little harder before you say, okay, that was too hard, or how you want to modulate difficulty. So if you don't like things being a little too easy, jump into this in the middle and go from there. As far as final thoughts on rating on Astro Knights, this very much seems designed to streamline Aeon's End in a lot of ways. And for me, it is a better game than Aeon's End. Aeon's End is always a game that I enjoyed, but never quite worked for me. It always felt a bit too fiddly in a bunch of different ways, and Astro Knights really fixes a lot of those, again, for me, just based on my own opinion of the two game systems. The big step backwards for me is the fixed versus variable card market, and just like my opinion of the two games, that is a personal choice as far as what you prefer. Do you prefer fixed card markets like Dominion, like this game or other games, or do you prefer variable card markets like Ascension or Star Realms or other games like that? And so that very much just comes down to a personal choice for deck building. At the end of the day, this one, in every exception except for that, is a step forward compared to Aeon's End and is a much better experience for me. If this is, as far as rating, this is on the cusp of a 4 for me, out of 5. This is a cusp of a 4 out of 5. It's one that I really, really like it, but I am really held back by that fixed versus variable card market. It's one where I feel I need to see the final game to see what additional cards there are, what additional anything there is. I think this one is a 4 to 5. It's just a drop shy. This is one of those, prototype versus whatever as far as where it ends up. I'm really enjoying my experience with it. I just want to drop more agency around what I'm doing and what I'm choosing as I go through the experience. Lots of fun, lots of variability, lots of powers and abilities, but I also want to plan towards what I want to do. And so I hope, I don't even know what their options on the table are. I hope there's some way to make it a variable, fixed card market. That would really deliver a home run for me as far as Astro Knights. But either way, despite that, I am still enjoying it. I just find myself conflicted because I have two different games and I want parts of both of them combined into the game that's designed perfectly for me. As far as other game recommendations, if you want, well, obviously Aeon's End is one you should be checking out. If you like Astro Knights, you should be checking out Aeon's End, and vice versa. Not a guarantee you'll like either or both, but worth checking out because they're very comparable. And then past that, Sky Tier Horde, which is another game you can probably find on Kickstarter as well. I find gives me a similar idea of taking down the boss, working together, playable solo, playable with others, a lot of the same elements while being very different systems at the same time. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful, and as always, have a good one.